Hey there everybody, and welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Justin Archer, aka The Posture Guy, your #1 source on pain, posture, and performance. And today I'm coming to you live from beautiful Sopot, Poland. If you don't know where it is, well, that's what Google Maps is for. So definitely check it out. It is right by Gdansk, northwest. Is that correct, Tanya? Northwest seaside, seashore?
Seaside.
Sally sells seashells down by the seashore, something like that. Go check it out. We just got here a few days ago. I'm definitely be doing a post coming up on how to survive long international travel because, oh my gosh, we took, what do we take? I took a public bus to the international bus, down to Bellingham Airport, we took a taxi to the airport, spent the night, went from Bellingham to Seattle, Seattle to Philly, Philly to Munich, Munich to Berlin, Berlin to Gdansk. We also spent the night at Bellingham Airport, and then we took a car then finally to where we are now. So yeah, a lot of travels, 40 plus hours of consecutive travel, exhausting, but we're here, we survived, and very happy to be here. So stay tuned for more on traveling. But today we're going to be talking about something that, you know, I think is kind of a shrinking demographic, but is still important. And that is, you know, as most of you are well aware, a lot of jobs nowadays promote excessive sitting. So we're in flexion a lot, right? You're sitting down and you get that kind of rounded forward posture with your shoulders forward, your head forward. And, you know, I've done videos on this before that, you know, in order to alleviate some of the symptoms that come with excessive sitting, you have to promote extension. Extension is movement behind you to the back. Well, what about that shrinking demographic of people who their jobs or their daily habits have to do with sitting? If you hear a little bit of noise around, this is Misha over here. Oh, she just left the room. Misha, the dog, might be coming in and out. It's my co-host for the day. But anyways, getting back to what I was saying, is, you know, there's some people who have to stand for long periods of times. If you're a teacher, or you do any type of presenting, even if it's not your normal day-to-day life, there may be times where you have to stand for long periods of times. Certain things that pop up in my mind are networking events where you're standing and you may meander a few feet here or there and talk to a couple people, then walk a few other feet, but you're standing for a long period of time. Maybe if you go to an amusement park with your family and you're on your feet all the time. And, you know, symptoms that usually arise from excessive standing and walking, and here's Misha, ladies and gentlemen, are lower back pain, hip pain, and you get really tight in your thighs and your groin and things like that. And that's because standing and walking by nature are extension movements. So like sitting, right? Sitting is flexion, basically this way. Extension is backwards, or standing and walking are movements that you do that promote extension. And you'll probably notice this is if you have to stand for a long period of time, you'll do things like shift weight over to one side, maybe shift it back over, turn one foot out. You know, you'll probably try to stabilize by putting your arms on your back, just something to take the pressure off your lower back and your hips and the thigh muscles and everything like that. Well, today I'm going to show you a few exercises. It's not going to be really like a routine like I've put together in past videos. These are just some exercises, some movements that you can do if you're forced to stand for long periods of time. All right? So just like in sitting, the best thing you can do is to not compromise, to counteract the excessive amount of flexion you have to be in, is to go into extension. The opposite is true for standing. So if you're in extension, what are you going to do? You guessed it, go into flexion, okay? Anything you can do to get that lower back and pelvis out of extension and into more neutral or even flex position is going to be beneficial for you. So probably the easiest thing to do, if you have something to put your foot on, is basically what I call the Captain Morgan's pose, you know, which is something like this, right? We all have a little bit of captain in us. You know, you can strike a pose if you want. You can look out. Obviously, I'm kidding. But just putting one foot up like this, yes, I'm bearing more weight on one leg, and you want to, if you do this, switch legs. And my foot right now is probably, I don't know, 14 inches off the ground. It doesn't have to be that high. It could be, you know, probably 6, 8, 10 inches. It could even be higher. It's just enough, and actually let me show you with this other leg here, because this will be better. If you notice, if I'm standing in extension, right, maybe my hips have shifted forward, my lower back is arched, and there's all this pressure building up on the lower back, the buttocks, the front of my hip. Well, what's going to feel really good is to put this foot up and it drops back into flexion, more of a neutral position, just as it would as if you went into a static back position or supine groin stretch, which for those of you who've tried any of those exercises know feels really good. So that's what we're looking to do, is get you just into some sort of flexion. Now the Captain Morgan pose, I think, is the easiest, okay? But there's a few other things you can do. Also, just when you stand, doing some standing gluteal contractions. So basically just squeeze and release your glutes. And when you do that, you're going to find a natural tendency for your pelvis to tilt posteriorly, which, one, this is going to engage your glute muscles, which are stabilizers of your hips. So it's going to put the muscle, it's going to put the work back into the muscles rather than into the joints to help stabilize you. And it's going to help reposition or promote a little bit more flexion in the lower back and the pelvis. And you can do 20, 30, maybe up to 60 of those, squeeze one every other second. And they're really easy to do. You can pretty much do them anywhere, and unless someone's staring at your ass, no one's going to know. So that's really easy. Another thing you can do is really focus on diaphragmatic breathing. Now, I've gone over this before in the, how breathing correlates with pain, posture, performance, the east-west breathing. If you haven't checked that out, I'll try to remember to put down a link down below on that. But basically what you want to do is you put your hands like this right above your pelvic bones here, is think about breathing in, and when you inhale, it should push out on the sides there of your hands. And if you do this correctly, inhale, exhale, this is really great too, especially when someone's talking and you're listening. You can focus on breathing in and out through the nose. Granted, pay attention to what they're saying too. But when you breathe like that, what it's actually going to do is engage your diaphragm, your primary breathing muscle, and it's actually going to massage your lower back and your pelvic floor from the inside out. So that's going to help release a lot of tension in that lower back area, the top of the glutes, the hips, both front and sides. So that's something else you can do as well. Now, there's a few other exercises that I've linked to down below, but I've actually made a list here so I didn't forget any, about some that I don't have videos recorded for yet, so I just want to go over a few with you. We went over the Captain Morgan pose, the standing gluteal contractions, the diaphragmatic breathing. You can also do some standing isolated hip flexor lifts. Now granted, some of these movements and exercises I'm going over is just to give you a variation, some choices, because obviously I know there's some exercises you can do in certain settings that you can't do in others. It depends on if you're in front of people, what type of people those are, if it's a business setting, is it formal, is it casual, etc., etc. So another one you can do is the standing isolated hip flexor lifts. Again, remember, we're trying to get you into some sort of flexion. So something you can do this with balance or without, but basically just stand, lift your leg to 90, and then lift it up as high as you can, hold for a few seconds, and then drop back down to 90, just like so. And you might just do, say, 5 to 10 of these on one leg, and then switch, and then do, 5 to 10 on the other. And what that'll do is engage, like the name suggests, or isolate your primary hip flexor, your iliopsoas. And if you're standing like this, it's going to make that more taut and pull it so your hips come back under you, thus relieving the pressure on the lower back and the hips and all that stuff we went over before. So that's the standing isolated hip flexor lifts. Another variation of this, kind of more passive, is a standing knee hugs. You've probably done this before at some point in your life, maybe called it something else, but it's simply standing and pulling your leg up like so. And you can do either side, right? And again, it's just promoting that flexion. There's multiple ways to get there. Again, let's see, a couple of these I noted down below, links to. Another is a squatting drape with abduction. So this one, basically, you just kind of squat down into a ball, hook your arms under like this, which is going to round your back if you see from the side here, and then you're going to pull your knees apart against your arms for, let's say, 20 to 30 repetitions, okay? So again, this is putting your lower back and your hips in flexion, as well as simultaneously working your abductors, or your outer thighs, just kind of like if you were standing and doing the gluteal contractions. Feels really good on the lower back and hips. Let's see. You can also do that movement if you don't feel comfortable standing. You can do it seated, right? So you can sit on a chair or a bench or whatever, bring your feet and knees together, and do the same thing. Okay? Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. And what else? Oh, the sitting can-can. How could I forget about that one? This one's really good. You basically want to sit on a chair, and one foot at 90 degrees, the other you're going to bring up onto whatever you're sitting, like so. Bring your heel close to your butt, and you're going to try to sit up tall. And what this will do is, one, it engages the iliopsoas, the primary hip flexor, and it's also going to help reposition the thigh bone towards the back of the hip socket. Because when you stand for a long period of time, you have a tendency for your hips to shift forward, and then for the head of the femur to shift forward to the front of the hip socket, which causes, you know, hip and groin pain, which also, you can imagine, this position turns your lower back into basically an accordion. You get lower back pain, maybe your glutes, your butt get really stiff. So again, those are just a few. I want to make sure to go over the ones that I don't already have videos to, which I've linked to down below. But those are just a few. They're not in any particular order. Obviously, there's a good number of them, like I said, that you can do standing. There's some that you need to sit down, squat, and then if you're in a setting, you can do so lay down on your back, things like static back or foot circles and point flexes. But give them a try. Again, no particular order. Try them out, see what feels best for you. And, you know, I'm very interested to know, which I'll be checking back later in the week, to see how you've utilized these maybe in your day-to-day life, you know, during work, if you have that type of job that forces you to stand or walk a lot, or, you know, maybe during a time where you're not usually standing or walking a lot, but you had to, like I said, maybe going to the amusement park. So definitely check those out, and I look forward to seeing you later in the week in the email and inside the next video. Until then, take care and keep moving.